let's keep tracking, because this is a kind of in-between part of the story, because this is the story about retail crime, and it does tie in, because it ties in my mind at least, to the idea of, we need to police this. We need to figure out how we're going to deal with crime. And this came out today. We've done this once before, actually. And I remember the conversation, because everyone was just thinking, cost of living, yada, yada, yada. And we did this maybe 6 months ago, and the representatives from the supermarkets were saying, we don't think this is cost of living, because the kinds of things that are being stolen aren't your basics. They're not your cost of living stuff. And they were saying back then that people are stealing things that look like it was maybe a black market, like they'd be stealing expensive bottles of wine because you could on-sell them or whatever. And it wasn't necessarily back then being said about being the cost of living. So I'm interested to hear again what they're saying it's all about this time around. But this is the story we're going to have a look at, to do with retail crime going through the roof, especially in supermarkets. And there's also this idea about facial recognition system, Chewy, being used in Pak'nSave, I think it is, their trial that they're doing with that as well.
Foodstuffs says retail crime at its North Island stores has doubled in 2 years, but a trial of facial recognition technology is helping to deter repeat offenders.
The supermarket chain insists the cost of living isn't the main driver behind the surge in thefts, but as Zane Small reports, a criminologist disagrees.
What you're about to watch is no longer a rare occurrence. A woman with a concealed item is approached by a New World staff member. She becomes aggressive and the worker is lunged at. Here, a security guard is kicked in the face by a man who refused to leave a Pak'nSave store.
There's no doubt that our store team members have a lot to deal with, and they've got more to deal with now than ever with this increase in retail crime.
Foodstuffs records show it's getting worse. There were more than 5,000 incidents of retail crime at the company's North Island stores in the first quarter of this year.
Now, not to be too much of a wanker, but if this was in the first quarter of last year, you just know that National would have used it to hammer Labour, right? Because this is all entirely within National's term. Now, I don't think we need to do that, but I'm just wanting to bring to your attention, if this was 12 months ago, this would have been a billboard by National against the incumbent government. Is it now fair then to do the reverse and say, what's this all happening under National for?
That's up from nearly 2,400 in the first quarter of 2022. To combat the rise in crime, 3 months ago, Foodstuffs began a 6-month trial of facial recognition technology at
How do we feel about that, Chewy? How do we feel about facial recognition?
I have a deep unease.
Yeah.
About facial recognition. There have been studies done, because a lot of the training of AI models around facial recognition, lots of false positives on darker complexions.
Right.
Seems to be an issue that hasn't been solved.
Right.
So yeah, I am not keen. I'm not keen on this at all.
The photos that we're seeing on the screen right now, they look like they're more the cameras at face level. But I remember when they started doing this in the UK with cameras up on poles, I used to think then, a camera system that can be basically beaten by having a cap pulled down nice and low is a pretty stupid system anyway. But yeah, they look like they're more, you must walk past them in front of you sort of thing to get the whole face. So, okay. I mean, I'm sort of, it's, and I'm sorry I said this 10 times last night, but it is the devil in the detail, isn't it? It depends how it's used, what it's used for, what they do with the data, what they're allowed to do with the data, what they're allowed to pass on, for example, to police and stuff. Like Apple, for example, often gets on the bad side of the FBI when they refuse to open, phones of people who have been accused of crimes and stuff, because they don't play that. What's this data going to be used for? Could it be used nefariously? I don't know. So I don't want to sound like a simpleton and always have this answer, but the details are what matters.
I think there's a couple of things here, right? Like we're talking about the facial recognition. That's one thing. The supermarkets have, they really made that push for self-service checkouts and that sort of thing as a cost-saving measure. Now they're crawling with cameras, and you got people making sure that the white onion that you just scanned and weighed isn't a T-bone steak. It slows the whole thing down. It pisses me off. Supermarkets, they I don't want to say that this is a justification for theft, right? But when there's so many stories about the super profits that these guys are extracting from this country, that
Yeah.
moral thing of like, oh, I don't want to make a small business go under by stealing from them,
My local
fucking
greengrocer.
goes away.
Yeah.
Goes away, doesn't it?
Well,
And then the
I-
supermarket's answer is to have a security guard. Now, as you see on all of that footage, the older person, you know, they stand by the door, and it seems that their whole job is to go, "Can I see your receipt?" and then take a punch to the face.
Mm,
Like, it's not safe for them.
mm.
It's not stopping the crime. It's ridiculous. I don't have an answer, but everything that the supermarkets are doing is wrong.
The self-checkout systems, the biggest loss they have going through those are when people ring up their cashew peanuts as salted peanuts, or they ring up their rose apples as Cox's apples, which are on special that week. That's the way that they lose that much money. And yeah, but look, it's really interesting to watch it, because since we lost plastic bags and that kind of thing, we go into paper bags and that, I felt like supermarkets are starting to restack your bags for you that you bring along. It always intrigues me about the financial advantage versus the customer service sort of thing. But yeah, those self-checkouts, it's like, we're doing this because we want to save money. Oh shit, we're losing a bunch of money. So now we're going to put more and more layers of security above these people who are weighing their own apples and doing the job for us, as you're saying.
I tell you what, if I work for a supermarket, there's no way that I'm approaching someone that might punch me in the face because they're taking something. There's no way that there's a single person in that supermarket that gets paid enough to deal with that. I understand the mindset that sort of shot of emotion of like, how dare you steal from the place that I work on? But fucking Foodstuffs don't give a shit about you.
But what about the other extreme? I am perplexed as to why people stand around and they watch 3 or 4 19-year-olds smashing up a Michael Hill jeweler, and everyone just stands back and watches. I'm
Because it's not
perplexed
worth
by
getting
that.
stabbed.
Well, but is that the thing that's going to happen?
In some case, like, I mean, we saw that footage there, man. Any one of those punches could be a screwdriver or something like that. It's not like, I mean, it's just not worth it.
Well, here's another thing as well. I'm one of those people, one of those assholes that when I'm walking out of JB Hi-Fi and they go, "Can I look in your bag, sir?" I go, "Nope," and I keep walking.
Yep.
Because they're
But
not
man,
entitled. They're not entitled to do it, and it's the same, Joey. Just so you know. And look, I'll be careful and say this. This is not legal advice, but it's the same at supermarkets. It's the same at Mitre 10. All those places, there's no right for them to do it. And this is always, it's a bit like the American conversation. They've given these people these inalienable rights, and then they're trying to squash them for the sake of profit or security. You can't have it both ways. The local Pak'nSave here in Dunedin, which is supposedly the cheapest supermarket in New Zealand, because Pak'nSave always comes out as the cheapest, and South Dunedin Pak'nSave is typically the cheapest of all the Pak'nSaves. They have a sign up on the wall saying, "To enter the store, you are giving us the right to search your bags," yada 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 yada. I don't believe that to be the case, and I think their sign up there is just so they can point to it and go, "See, there's a sign," but they're not supposed to be allowed to look in your bags. And I've had it once there as well. They've said, "Can we look at your bags?" And I've gone like, "Nope," and then they've gone, "You have to. You've given us the right to." Because, and it was a 17-year-old kid, and I didn't want to give him shit, so I was like, "Sure." But this is the flip side of it, is also the idea of, like, we're talking about the facial recognition. What do we give up? What rights do we give up? What freedoms do we give up to give these guys more security and give these guys less financial loss as well? Where is that line? Because I'm not prepared to give it all of up, but I also don't want to see necessarily a business get ripped off.
Yeah, it's. I'm not saying, like, I don't like thieves. I don't like shoplifters. I've had to deal with them for years. Look, I'm the same. If I'm asked to show my bag, 9 times out of 10 I won't, because I haven't taken anything. I've worked very closely with security guards at a former employer of mine, and that sort of thing, and to see what he has to deal with and that sort of thing. But yeah, there is no way that I would work at a supermarket or be a security guard at a supermarket and put myself in the way of harm for that supermarket duopoly.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so I think guard, someone just wants to make sure, stay positive, wants to make sure that you're not saying so 1 time out of 10 you took something.
The other aspect,
the job of this is the thing though, right? Now I'm conflicted on this because you and me saying no with our bags is making the job more difficult for the security guard, which might lead to something else that might get them all hit up for no reason. So I'm aware of that as well. But the job of the security guard is to observe and report. That's actually what they're there to do. They don't have arrest powers. They're not supposed to detain. They're supposed to observe and report and call into the police if they need any other thing. So those guys actually getting punched in the face, I'm not saying it's their own fault at all, make that clear, but they should probably be just letting them walk out and, following them and trying to get a license plate or something. I don't know.
And again, I understand that reaction. I'm indignant when I have seen something like that, or I see the footage. I can understand why someone would do that. I'm just saying, don't put yourself in harm for the fraction of a percentage point of profit for an international corporation. Fuck that. Take your wages, observe and report, as you've said. Supermarkets want me to use a self-service checkout. They can trust me to use it and not steal.
Yeah. I'm saving you money. I'm doing a job for you. You don't have to have a staff member to do this.
Yeah, exactly. If that's costing you too much money, rip them out. The answer is not to stick a camera in my face to make sure that I do it properly.
Yeah. All right.
We're either trustworthy enough for that system to work or we're not.
Yeah. Let's keep trucking with this,
25 New World and Pak'nSave stores across the North Island.
If the individual is not a person of interest, their image will be deleted.
It works by matching the faces of people who enter against the store's record of offence.
It's funny, actually, not to cut into this, so we're going to be here till midnight if we do this again, but you've just said, and I agree with you, if they're going to have those systems, they need to trust us, while at the same time they're saying, well, we're going to be extra secure on you and you can trust us. So they're saying that we have to trust them whilst they're not trusting us. So that's an interesting conversation to debate out as well.
It is. The Privacy Commission has been keeping an eye on it. So far, of the 850 notifications, there was only 1 reported case of misidentification. And it appears shoppers are comfortable with the added security measure. Foodstuffs has released the results of a survey of 452 customers at locations where the facial recognition technology was rolled out. It found that 9 out of 10 either supported it or didn't have a problem with it.
The feedback from store team members and owners is very positive. They are noticing a decrease in retail crime in those trial stores.
And the security experts Foodstuffs is working with say the cost of living isn't to blame.
In resale in relation to organised crime, secondly in relation to feed addiction or in relation to addiction, and thirdly for notoriety on social media and not cost of living.
But criminologist Emi Rakete disagrees.
Until ordinary working class New Zealanders have a higher standard of living, till they have housing they can rely on, food they can afford, this is probably going to continue happening.
A surge in retail crime, she says, is a sign of desperate times. Zane Small, News Hub.
Yeah, well, there you go. To wrap that up from their side of things, Chewy, I guess, they say it's not. And I remember the conversation we had last time, the story was saying that people aren't stealing packs of nappies. Like they were saying, the cost of living basics are not the things being stolen. But then I guess you could also argue, well, if they're stealing to order, that's to get money for the cost of living. Yeah. So I guess it's chicken or egg.
It's stealing nappies is a relatively low value item that's bulky and hard to hide. Stealing a supermarket trolley full of packets of meat that would go for $10-20 a pop would buy you many more packs of nappies. Yeah. Like this is why I've never bought that, like, oh, it's not a cost of living sort of thing. It's
right.
It's people wanting to live the good life.
Well, I actually remember the point you made last time, which you may have forgotten. And the point was maybe the supermarket are saying it's not a cost of living because they don't want to bring attention to how much profit they're making and how much they're charging for the basics. So maybe there is a vested interest for the supermarkets to go, oh, it's not cost of living. So, and you made that point last time to give you credit and just reminding us all of the point that you made, which I think is a really fair and quite intelligent point there, Joey.